Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Reed, for that lovely introduction. I hope you all are doing well. I see some beautiful faces that I've seen before. So glad to see them again. Refreshing relationships and recovery. Addiction is a disease of isolation. Everybody knows that. It can be anyway. Rebuilding broken relationships and building new ones is an important part of early recovery. As time passes, it's important not to allow the fellowship pillar of the recovery community and program to become stale or too routine. Adding something new of a creative, spiritual, and physical nature can enhance the relationships that are so vital to long-term recovery. We all know about boredom. Boredom can be a trigger for both substance relapse and emotional relapse. Not communicating with your loved ones or friends. Let's take a look at some creative and new ideas to refresh or spice up what you already know. I am welcoming any questions and comments, so we will have a lively presentation. So I want to go over a few possible tips or ideas with you. Sometimes early recovery can come with a lot of questions and a lack of trust between the person in recovery, family, and friends. As time passes and recovery continues and grows, individuals with a solid recovery routine can become bored with that routine, even if they manage to keep it together and move forward day after day, month after month. It's sort of like anything else. When you are engaged in any activity, it's sort of like driving down a road over and over again. After a while, you forget that you're driving down the road. So you leave one place and get to your destination, and you forget the details in between. We've talked about that a lot. You kind of forget where you're driving, and you leave home, and all of a sudden you're there. Well, when you're in recovery and the routine becomes too routine and too normal and too everyday, you forget the details in between. So it's important to do something to change your routine so you can remember the details. Just like going to meetings, you go to a meeting and you may find that you're hearing the same things over and over again, you know, and if you're beginning to feel that way, sometimes we wait for something to happen to change the meeting, or wait for something to happen to change the atmosphere. Will somebody else please change something? Well, believe it or not, you have the power and the ability to change it yourself. You can do it yourself. You don't have to wait on someone else to do it. If you have a speaker meeting, you can bring something to the speaker meeting that might be interesting to the group. Maybe you can bring up a topic. Maybe you traveled somewhere and saw recovery in another part of the state or another part of the world. Or maybe you were involved in an international meeting and someone came up with something in that meeting that was very enthralling or interesting. Bring it up. Sometimes we wait for someone else to make the change, and it might be our turn to do that. Obviously, having a solid recovery routine is great, but it's also important to include your family and friends if they are open to it. Family attending Al-Anon and CODA meetings, or even AA or NA, would be one of the initial steps towards inclusion and understanding. However, it can be refreshing to be creative and add new ideas and activities. Let's just say a family goes to a meeting or goes to an Al-Anon meeting and they just go home. You could change it up by going to the meeting and after the meeting, doing something special to kind of mark the event. It can be an event. You can make anything a positive event if you want to. It only becomes dull when you let it become dull. Schedule a weekly or monthly family meeting to debrief and discuss what has been going on with everyone in the household, kind of to begin on a common ground, engaging in sort of a type of holistic recovery. Everybody in the house is important. If you have a family, everybody in the house is important. And what they're doing is important. Oftentimes we get busy with day-to-day activities and do not sit down and sort of have a family meeting and talk about what's going on. How are you feeling at school? What's going on at work? We get too busy and we don't have those kinds of conversations. And that can end up being a problem. Now, you may say, well, what does that have to do with recovery? Just because recovery is happening in the house doesn't mean that the rest of the world stops. It keeps going. And when you think about your recovery is impacted by the rest of the world. So it's a good idea to kind of engage all of that information, bring all of that information to the table and have family discussions. Oftentimes we don't have family discussions until somebody gets into trouble or somebody's grades aren't good. You know, we can do that without having to have problems, you know. Change up change the message a little bit. We can come together and meet. And when you call them down the stairs, so they won't think, oh, what did we do wrong this time? Where nothing's wrong. We're just having a family meeting and we're going to have some ice cream and cake, or we're going to have pizza, or we're going to do something fun. What a change that would make. Is it always possible to do that? No. But those few times when it's done, even your family will feel differently about recovery. It can be something positive. When you sit down for these meetings, there's no television. And there's no talking about work necessarily. It's more about who you are, what's happening with your son, what's happening with your daughter, what's happening with your partner, husband or wife. It doesn't matter. You know, what's going on with you? How are your feelings? What new happened to you today? Too often we go to work and we don't really engage with our coworkers in a positive manner either. You don't have to tell everybody your private business, but change it up a little bit and just find out how they're doing. Engage close, supportive friends. And for those who don't have a lot of family around, you can make your own family out of the recovery community. And many of you already know that, or you've already experienced it. You can communicate about the smallest of achievements. It doesn't have to be a big thing. We're real quick to talk about being angry at someone or having some kind of discord or something not going right somewhere, but very seldom do we talk about small achievements. Doing this can energize your recovery because the likelihood is great that there will be something new to discuss. This would not be the time for highly controversial discussions, just uplifting discussions. The family can choose a project to work on together. It can be something in the home, volunteering in your community for the day, ending with a treat, spending time in nature with meaning and intention, not just walking, but walking with intention. Maybe collecting natural items, then attaching meanings to each item for each family member to let them know that they're important. This can also be done with couples. Let each other know how important you are to each other, not when things are going wrong and things are falling apart and then tears come and all of a sudden the truth comes out that you really care about each other. Do it before things go bad. If couples are having difficulty communicating an issue, choose a room in your home or a place on the porch that is a neutral space, not the bedroom. Both people need legal pads, pen, or pencil. Choose an object for the talker or flip a coin. The designated person must have time to say what is on their mind in its entirety. The purpose of the pad is for the other party to write down their responses to what is being said to them, so that there's no breaking into the conversation and both parties get an opportunity to say their piece. And there's no arguing, because once the arguing starts, the whole point is lost. If you write it down and you relay your notes and what you've written down on your end, both parties have an opportunity to get their feelings out without raising their voice or arguing. You can only win. Changing the narrative does not mean pretending the addiction did not happen. It can allow for the birth of a new story, new memories and experiences. When people experience healing from other diseases, they often try to develop new memories with family and friends. Why not in the case of recovery? Make a common sense bucket list for yourself and for discoveries you would like to make with those who are important to you, or even on your own to have something to talk about later. Other activities that might be interesting would be making a gratitude day or have a gratitude meeting or meal. At that time, you're expressing your thankfulness to each other. And if you're alone, thankfulness for what you have. Decorate a hope tree. Tie messages of hope onto a tree of your choosing that you've designated, hopefully in your own yard. To tie on, that's important, to tie on messages of hope and gratitude. Have a burning time. Burning time includes writing down emotions you want to get rid of or goals you want to accomplish and throw them in the fire. The point is, what is your intention at the time? Keep that intention going. Sit down and talk about what I like about you and what I love about you, those lists. To read monthly, make it count and make it an occasion. And if you're alone, write down what you like about yourself and what you love about yourself. That takes some work, but you can do it. Give yourself or a loved one or with a loved one monthly goals to accomplish. They don't have to be grandiose. Simple is always good. It could be building a birdhouse together, a dog house, a hope chest, sewing, crocheting, knitting, painting, leather work, woodwork, building anything, making something with your hands, because when you use your hands, you're putting the energy and love into that thing that you're making, and it won't be forgotten. Develop a forgiveness ritual or a forgiveness gathering. This can help to re-energize your connection to your loved ones, friends, family, and to increase your spirituality, your spiritual connection to your recovery and to those who are important to you. Do that self-love work as well, because if you do self-love work and you like yourself better and you have less resentment hanging around, then you get along better with everybody else in your life, generally. Making something together as a couple or family with intention needs to have a meaning or significance, and you can mark that significance. Have a planting time, also with intention. You can plant flowers, trees, even vegetables. It's the intention. Open your mind to the meaning behind making an effort. Be mindful, be creative, ask questions, and allow for continued growth. We will never know everything. There is always room to learn more. So does anybody have any questions, comments, observations? Excellent, excellent. Glad you're here too, definitely. You know, relationships come in so many different packages. And sometimes you may even have a friend that you've had for a long time, and when you were in treatment, you might have learned something about personalities and opened up your eyes to maybe that friend that you've had for years that might do something that kind of gets on your nerves, but you've learned about personalities and you allow some of those idiosyncrasies to take a back seat, and you can still have a relationship with that person because you see a little bit clearer. And with forgiveness, that's so important for building good relationships. Forgiveness is extremely important because so often in recovery, you may have heard earlier on a lot of negative messages about yourself. And now that you are clean and sober and you're working the program, understanding begins to open up, and you may not forget some of the negative things that are being said, but you may have an understanding of them, and you've learned to let go of those negative messages because you know they don't serve you. And it's important to let go of the negative messages because they have nothing to do with your growth. It's just like going to the grocery store and buying a whole bunch of stuff you don't need, and sometimes you need to empty the bucket, empty the basket a little bit, and collect a little bit less and determine, is this something I can learn from, or is this something that does not serve me? If you can learn from it, ask questions of your sponsor, ask questions of your therapist if you have one, about what is actually going on. And always remember, oftentimes when you get negative messages from someone, they're dealing with their own issues too. And sometimes that can happen with relationships where there might be negativity, but you have to remember you've learned skills in treatment, you've learned skills in meetings to help you transcend some of that heaviness. It doesn't mean that you're Teflon and nothing will stick, but at least you have something to work with if you hear some negative messages. Well, might I suggest a gratitude meal?
Um,
Wouldn't hurt a thing. Making a special meal, and next to the plate, a list of all of the things that you are grateful for that he does for you.
mhm,
And it's a beginning.
yeah.
What I like about this list, and I'll send it to you if you want me to, is that you can try numerous things. And I think a lot of times if people know that someone cares and there's some gratefulness, and that what you just said, the understanding that I get it, you know, and spending time that is marked by something specific. You preface the event with meaning, feeling, love, attention, and it can help to gradually, it's not going to happen overnight, gradually reduce some of those feelings of resentment. And needless to say, when people feel special and they feel appreciated over time, some of the resentment will go away. So I will go on and talk a little bit about this strange thing that happens when people come home from treatment. And Amy, you sort of kind of on that same line of thinking when you said fixed, even though you know what that actually means. Family members, spouses want you to be better. However, they have learned how to live around you not well. And this isn't the case for most of you at this point in your recovery, but there was a time when people learned to live around you not well. And they became used to that not well situation. It became sort of their own routine of survival. Call it emotional survival, physical survival, whatever you like. And it became sort of like a habit, almost like the addiction in a strange way. And then you get well, you come home, and then that loved one who really, really wanted you to get well may, not always, but may have difficulty adjusting to the new you. What am I going to do now? You're awake, you're alert, you're healthy, you're not drinking, you're not using. What am I going to do now? You don't need me anymore. Do you need me? I don't know if you need me anymore. And that sometimes can be an issue. When you were unhealthy, you needed me and I had purpose. So that part of the relationship has to be re-energized too. And it takes time. Yes, you are still important to me. Got to verbalize it. You're still important to me. Yes, you took care of me in my disease, and I appreciate everything you did for me. But now I am in recovery, and I'm working every day to stay that way. It doesn't mean that I've changed how I feel about you. It means that this is probably the person I was born to be, the person I am right now. I am the person I was born to be. I'm in recovery. I'm living my life. I am doing healthy things. And I might even be a little bit better than how I started out, because maybe I've learned some more things about myself I didn't know before. Or I've probably dug into my history and looked at traits that I had that came from somewhere I didn't even know existed. And now I know that. So as you gain knowledge and you share that knowledge with your loved ones, that too can help to solidify your recovery, because you're repeating that information that you've already learned. And it can also help re-energize how you feel about each other. And this is sons, daughters, husbands, wives, partners, all of that can be improved. So have any of you guys done anything special since you've been out of treatment to kind of mark your recovery? That is fantastic to hear.
Yes.
Fantastic. So you have lots of things that you can do with them,
Yes.
and even you can even do some virtual things.
That's what we do. And
Wonderful.
we do get together as much as possible.
And you know, there's this thing called mail that a lot of us don't use anymore.
That thing. Stationary part.
Yeah,
What?
stationery, letter, paper, pen.
Paper,
But,
pens.
but
Yes,
yeah, and just handmade things, little
sure.
trinkets in the mail, with an intention. You know, I'm so grateful that we're back together as a
Yes,
family, and here's a trinket that reminds me of you. And boy, I could come up with a lot of things. Absolutely. Well, of course, I always talk about Dharma recovery, and I like it because it is so different. And meditation is one of the central activities that's done in a Dharma recovery meeting. And some people like to check out Smart Recovery just to see what it's like. I mean, it may not be your fellowship, but it's good to have an open mind. And also there are other recovery groups like the Phoenix, that is, I think, nationwide, where people ride bicycles and they do mountain climbing, and everything is physical and very active. That's another possibility, something new to do. And in addition, there are art groups, recovery art groups, or art groups that are formed by other people in recovery. It's always possible to start your own thing. And when it comes to your family, you can do the same thing. It's almost like we get into a rut of doing things the same way. And somehow or another, it's like we build a building around the habits of what we do every day. And it's almost like we have fear in taking that building down, taking apart those Lincoln logs or that Lego house that we've built, and starting over. Let's do something different for an entire month. Thanks for sharing that. That sounds really incredible. And that's something that they won't forget. And as you do things like that over and over again, and this is for everyone, even if you're alone, as you do more and more amazing things, it can be something small, or medium or big, it doesn't matter. But as you do more and more amazing things that give you that feeling inside that's different, sort of like that tingle or that spiritual feeling inside, that's each day
Yeah.
that you renew yourself, regenerate, re-energize yourself as someone who is clean and sober and in recovery.
Yeah.
Because it has to be both emotional and physical. It's like anything else. You've heard the term dry drunk. Nobody wants to be that, to where you still have an attitude problem, still have difficulty getting along with other people, still have a lot of issues that you haven't worked through emotionally, but you're saying to yourself, well, I'm clean and sober. This is what everybody wanted. Why is everybody getting on my nerves? I'm clean and sober. I did what everybody wanted me to do. Well, there's something missing there. So it's got to be inside out, outside in, inside out. Okay, so that brings to mind the topic of spirituality and how that helps to re-energize pretty much all of your activities. It probably sounds a bit over the top, but when you do have to do the dishes, okay, when it's your turn to do the laundry, I challenge you to think about what it was like before, when there were no dishes to wash, or if they were all piled up in the sink nasty, when there were no clothes to wash, or they were all piled up in the floor nasty, and the loveliness of being able to do it, just being able to do it, and looking at it in a different way. I hate washing dishes too. Hate it. But if you do it with intention, it sounds crazy, but at the very least, you can laugh at what I'm saying when you wash dishes. If you do it with intention and you're washing something out of your mind that doesn't need to be there, wash away. When you are thinking about what you're going to do with your family, use that dishwashing time as a meditative time. Hands in the water, I'm cleansing my water. I'm cleansing my hands. I'm cleansing everything around me every time I wash the dish. Why not? It's all in how we choose to think about things. And if doing household chores, you don't feel like doing it at that moment because you need to take out some time for yourself, go walk the dog before you wash the dishes. Go sit down and meditate before you do housework. Do some aromatherapy. Smell some beautiful oils before you start doing the hard work, rearrange the house, light a candle for those who have gone before, who didn't make it. Put some meaning into it. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Really good information.
Yeah.
Really good information. Yeah. And plugging back into your spirituality can help with that, because if you do feel tired and you're having difficulty going to sleep, you give yourself an opportunity to meditate, to do the deep breathing, and to really take it seriously. And then you find that you may be able to rest better. And some of the things that are still hanging on in the back of your mind, you can let go of them, because again, you know this, the things from the past you cannot change. So when you feel yourself starting to to kind of go backwards and those old tapes start playing, stop them and just tell your mind, nope, not going to go there today. Not going to go there today. And if you're feeling grief and anger, you've got to get up from where you are sitting and move. You've got to get up from where you're sitting and move. If you don't move, it can creep in. You've got to connect back in with your spirituality and work through those feelings so that it will not take over you like sludge and weigh you down. If something isn't going right, tell someone. Don't hold on to it like you did before, because it didn't work to hold on to it then. It will not work to hold on to it now. And that's another way to re-energize yourself, is to let go. Let go. Let go of those old things. And sometimes it's hard to do that, but you got to let go of it. Get back to your spirituality, commune with it. If you've set up a special place in your home where you practice your spirituality, go back to it. Don't forget about it. It can work. It's better than sitting in sadness and depression and anxiety. Just remember to utilize those skills. It's really, really important, because look at what you've earned. Look at what you've gained. Look at the love that you gave yourself and that you're giving yourself when you don't use. Look at the love that you're giving yourself when you're clean and sober. You're tending to yourself. You're tending to your own personal garden, which is you. And you also are tending to the garden that's your family. Each time, each day, you're fortifying yourself, the environment around you, the people around you, even coworkers. They get a bit of that energy when you're walking around with it. They get a little bit of it every time. If you're having trouble connecting to your spirituality, talk to someone that you know in the rooms that isn't having a hard time connecting with it. That's part of the purpose. If you know someone that's doing well with it, find out what they're doing. Connect. Practice. Okay, so time for contemplation and self-reflection. And I hope that you got something out of this.